So You're an Author is a podcast by an indie author for indie authors. On this podcast, your host, Adair, will be speaking to authors from all walks of life. This includes, but is not limited to, authors who are BIPOC, chronically ill, disabled, queer, trans, non-binary, and more. During these interviews, we will be speaking about their personal lives, their struggles, and other things of that nature. If you are sensitive to topics such as racism, ableism, transphobia, homophobia, or anything that falls into categories such as these, this podcast might not be for you, and that's okay. In the same vein, please do not leave comments if you're going to be rude or hateful. This podcast is meant to uplift, not belittle, and I will not stand for anything that is seen as harmful to me or the authors that I interview. To quote Thumper, if you can't say something nice, don't say nothing at all. If you're still here after all of that, I want to say thank you to our publisher tier patron, Lizzie, and anyone who may soon join her in that tier. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, comment, etc. on whatever platform you're listening to this podcast on. A podcast is nothing without its listeners after all. So thank you. Hello, and welcome to the So You're an Author podcast. My name is Adair Reese. I am your host, and occasionally you may hear my co-host Lucifer as he decides to join us with a chorus of meows, yowls, screams, or whatever his little gray self may feel like telling us today. Welcome to our first episode. So this first episode is an introduction to who I am, why I started this podcast, and what I kind of expect to come of this podcast. So I guess let's just get started, huh? So you're probably wondering, who is Adair Reese and why should I care? First of all, I hope you care. I really hope you like me. But no, my name is Adair Reese. I am 36. I am engaged to a wonderful, wonderful man. I have a son who is about to go to college. And I have been writing for 20 plus years. That does not mean that I've published anything, but I have been writing in various forms. I started writing on Gaia Online. For those millennials who know what Gaia Online was, I cut my writing teeth in their role-playing forums where I started with asterisks around actions, one-liner posts, and I had somebody around that time when I was, just a teenager kind of take me under their wing and teach me how to role-play in paragraph form, and my writing just kind of exploded from there. Now, this does not include the time where I wrote fan fiction of whatever show my friends and I were into in notebooks that we passed back and forth in the hallways in school. We had multiverses upon multiverses when we did things like that within the stories, and of course they were all, self-insert OCs with characters and, just things that cringy weeb kids did before it was cool to be a cringy weeb kid. But so I've been writing for a very long time, mostly through role-playing. I have written one manuscript that is in its first rewrite / edit mode, draft, whatever, right now. And then I have written a plethora of other things that have never made it to completion. But I am working on breaking that habit. I have bipolar 2. And the depression that comes with that just sometimes makes me forget that writing is the one thing that I've always been passionate about in my life. It is the one thing I have always done. It has always been the one consistent in my life, and it is something that I will do until the day I die, even if I never actually publish anything. However, I would like to take a minute to kind of tell you about what I am writing, about the manuscript that is currently in its editing phase, and about the one that I'm also working on kind of in tandem when I need to take a break from editing. So the book that I am editing currently is called Mark of the Seraph. It is a gothic fantasy horror novel about a cursed apothecary, a scholar who has no idea he was chosen, and an assassin who is promised to keep that apothecary safe even if she doesn't know it. I'm horrible at blurbs. They are the bane of my existence. I have, again, written the first draft. It has gone to alpha readers, and they have absolutely loved it. But Mark of the Seraph is like I said, a gothic fantasy horror novel. It is dark. It is thought-provoking. There's a lot of religious motifs. In fact, the whole thing is a religious motif when you think about it. Basically, so Lynn is an apothecary who is cursed with something called the Mark of the Seraph. It gives her healing abilities that only ecclesiam healers of the Oriate Church are allowed to use. She has been hiding this for almost a decade, over a decade actually, from the church itself, because if they were to find out that she had these abilities, they would execute her. There have been many times that they have come down to her apothecary to inspect it and try to catch her in the act, but they've never been able to. So, eventually, they send somebody, a man, a scholar. His name is Emrys, and he goes under the guise of just wanting to apprentice in her apothecary shop. So Lynn has never met him before. She has no idea that he's actually there to try to finally catch her in the act of using her magic. On the sidelines of all of this, we have Lucian, who was saved by Solon not long after her mark appeared, when she first got her healing magic and didn't know that she didn't have to, bleed to use her magic. But she saved his life on a night when he should have died after an assassination had gone wrong. And from that point on, he promised to protect her. So he has been watching her from the shadows, yearning, obsessed, and wanting nothing more than to keep her safe, even if that means betraying the church. It's a story. It's a wonderful story. I think it's great. My alpha readers think it's great. Again, I'm not very good at pitching my own things. And that's something that we'll kind of talk about in the podcast as well, is why writing blurbs and pitching your own stories when you're the ones who have spent hours writing them is one of the hardest things that you're ever going to do. The other story that I'm working on is might be a novella, but may end up becoming a full-length novel. And it is called Like a Dog Inspires a Rabbit. For those of you who know, you know. Like a Dog Inspires a Rabbit is a story inspired by 21 Pilots and the lore behind the band. It is the story of Clary. She is a Lapin, or a rabbit folk, who was supposed to just do what all Lapin do and go to a ceremony that kind of led her into adulthood, only hers was interrupted in a way that nobody expected. She is forced to the ocean, all of the Last Unicorn style, and after she has no choice but to jump, she awakens on the shores of a place she was told she was never supposed to go. It is on this continent, this other island, this place called Trench, that she discovers that everything that she's been taught has been a lie, and that the Warren wasn't always as safe as she thought it was. And she's going to have to go back and save them because only she can. Well, at least she hopes she can. It is a story of overcoming self-doubt and fears and all of those things that I personally struggle with, and that I know other authors and other people just in general struggle with. I have been a 21 Pilots fan for many, many years now, thanks to my son. We've been to 2 of their concerts. He has all of the vinyl records. I have all of, I'm getting a 21 Pilots tattoo. I love all of their music. And I am, it's just one of those books that I really hope that people love, because it is coming from a place of somewhere more personal to me than a lot of my other stories will be. I do also have a quartet of books that I will finish writing someday. That series is going to be what I hope is my biggest series. It is going to be called the Dark in the Stars series. It started out as a write 50,000 word challenge on Royal Road. I didn't complete that, so I took it down and I've been reworking it into something better than what it was there. To Darken the Stars, the first book is called To Bite the Hand, and it is the story of Phelan. She is a wolf human hybrid alien, but she's not just an alien. She is a celestial. She is a child of the stars. She is a child of Canis Major herself, because in the universe of To Bite the Hand and the Dark and the Star series overall, the constellations are real. The constellations are personified into different beings, different aliens, different people. And Canis Major created the Canids, which are Phelan's people. And throughout this story, let me backtrack a little bit. So, Phelan's story came to be when I sat with myself one day and I asked myself, what would happen if I never chose to heal and I just chose to stay angry? And that's kind of where Phelan's story was kind of birthed, was in that I have the potential to be an angry person all the time, and I'm the only one who's able to stop myself from being that. Throughout this book series, Phelan will not get a redemption arc. She will become a villain, and she will stay a villain throughout all of it. She will become a force to be reckoned with within the universe, and there's not much anybody can do about it. There are some twists and turns along the way. Again, this is a 4-book series, so I obviously can't tell you everything. But in the first book, Phelan is basically a pawn that was brokered in a deal between Sirius and Orion. Orion is obviously the personification of the constellation Orion, but he has also been an oppressor of the Canids ever since Canis Major disappeared generations ago. And Phelan is taken from her home of Adhara, and she is taken to Betelgeuse, where she is to live under Orion's thumb. And basically, he is trying to force her to become the next Canis Major, to be the mother of the next generation of his attack dogs, so he can completely take over the universe and take that power away from Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, who are the current rulers of the kind of constellation republic, for lack of a better term. It is very much a sci-fi fantasy. There is a lot that's going to go into these 4 books, and I obviously cannot wait to get to them. Again, this is a series that's been on my mind for a very long time. I have written some of the first book. It just needs to be completed and edited and then moved on to the second book. I also have a lot of other ideas just here and there. I want to write a dystopian. I want to write some more horror stuff. In fact, I have a sci-fi horror that I halfway wrote for National Novel Writing Month before they went to shit. And it is partially written, like most of my stories are. And hopefully one day I'll be able to bring that to you guys too. I suffer very much from the, ooh, that's a new idea, let's write that, and then completely putting up all of my other ideas. I'm sure all of us authors are kind of like that though. So yeah, that's just a little about me, a little about what I have in my pipeline. Outside of writing, I am also an editor. I am hoping to be an audiobook narrator. I am currently working on narrating a book for a friend of mine, and that friend will also be interviewed on this podcast eventually as well. So it's just kind of, I have a lot going on, and well, it seems like I have a lot going on, but it seems like it's all at once and nothing all at the same time, if that makes any sense. But so if you are interested in any editing services or narration, if you like the way my voice sounds here, you can always hit me up on Instagram or on Threads or on TikTok at any of my Adair Reese accounts or at any of the So You're an Author pod accounts. My email addresses will also be available on the website. And just in case it's not, it is still the So You're an Author pod at gmail.com. And it's kind of the name that I've used for everything. So it's all in one place, all easy to find. And I'll make sure I do put that email onto the card after I get done recording this, if I remember. But I'm hoping to personally have something published by the end of 2026 or the beginning of 2027. So please follow all of my socials, kind of keep up. I need somebody to bully me into writing. So you guys are free to do that. Like, you can just pop up on my Threads or like my Instagram or something and be like, hey Adair, have you written today? You should probably do that. Please bully me. I'm asking you very nicely to bully me so I actually get some writing done. Anyway, so the reason that I started the So You're an Author podcast is because I was scrolling through Threads and I realized so many of my friends are indie authors, and so many of them just scream into the void for 1 heart here, 2 hearts there, maybe a repost, maybe a quote, maybe for barely any interaction. And that's just kind of how Threads is with its algorithm. Some things pop off, some things don't. As of recording this, my most popular thread to date is about my cat sleeping on his toy. Lucifer is sleeping on his little rainbow worm baby, which is the first toy I ever bought him that he carries around, and he meows it in his mouth, or with it in his mouth. And I just posted a picture of him sleeping on it, and that is my most popular thread to date. If I post anything about the podcast or writing or whatever, it gets ignored, which is fine. That's how algorithms work, you know? But just scrolling through Threads and seeing that, I was like, I want to give authors a place to talk to somebody about their books that isn't just screaming into the void. And so I kind of tossed the idea around on the AboMac, which is a bowl of mac and cheese Discord server. If you know, you know. If you don't, it's a community that has been kind of built from a shitpost on Threads that has kind of blossomed into something amazing. That Discord is currently closed to new members. However, if anybody is interested in joining a Discord community, and it's something that you think we should do here at So You're an Author podcast, where I open up a Discord to people I interview, people who are interested in being interviewed, indie authors who just want a community, artists who are looking for indie authors to work with, editors, anybody like that, please comment down below and let me know. And that can be something that I look into. It wasn't something that was originally planned, but if that is something that y'all are interested in, please let me know, because I would love to do something like that, but only if people are interested in it. Running a Discord takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of energy, and so I just want to make sure that I'm putting all of my time and effort and energy into things that are going to do good. Hence this podcast. I've put a lot of time and effort and energy into this, and by the time you guys are hearing this, I will have interviewed the first 2 of the first 5 authors that I picked out of the 150 of you who have replied, and there are still a ton more that I really want to talk to and I really want to get to know, and everything else. I'm constantly going through the form to find people and everything else, but anyway, let's backtrack a little bit. So I started this podcast as a way for indie authors to talk about their books without screaming into the void. And I love talking to people. I love getting to know people. I love helping people. It's kind of who I am. It's kind of what I do, or at least I try to. So that's where this kind of came from. I tossed it around with the people in the AboMac Discord, and we sat and we talked, and we kind of came up with this. And I will be interviewing people from that Discord as well. I have a couple who have released books that I'm very excited to speak to. I will be scheduling their interviews very soon for us to talk and to kind of let you guys meet them as well. But I've also heard, and it was on my form with so many things, that a lot of people wanted to do this podcast because writing is a lonely thing, and they just kind of wanted that sense of, not being alone and knowing there are other indie authors who are going through the exact same things that they're going through. And, it doesn't matter what level of publishing that we're at. We've all been there. We've all done that. So that's another reason why, I wanted to just give you guys a place to talk and to, have some laughs and have some fun and talk about, the trials and the tribulations, the highs and the lows, and the good and the bad, and, why did you do this? Why did you do that? What works for you? What doesn't work for you? What might work for others? I want this to be a resource one day for indie authors to be able to come and listen to this, realize they're not alone, realize they're not the only ones who are out here, doing all of these things, and then also having just a place for, finding new readers and a community and everything else. And again, if you're interested in a Discord, let me know, because the more I'm yapping about this, the more I'm thinking about it. But yeah, so that's kind of what I want So You're an Author to be. I want it to be a place where we all just realize that we're not alone out here and that we're not competition. Indie authors, all of my lovely indie authors, and any readers that might be listening, anybody like that, we're not in competition, guys. We should be lifting each other up, not throwing each other down. And I know that there are a lot of things out there where, some people have opinions and other people have other opinions. It's just how kind of life is. But as indie authors, I think we should be uplifting each other, not belittling each other. Which is exactly what I say what I said in the very beginning of this podcast, and my kind of disclaimer intro is that this podcast is meant to uplift and not belittle. So I also want that. That's something that I expect from this podcast more than it is why I started this podcast. But to segue into that, that's what I expect from this podcast. I expect this podcast to be a place by an indie author for indie authors to find new readers, new friends, a community, editors, artists, because I plan on expanding this beyond authors one day. I want to interview, bookish authors, bookish artists. I also want to interview editors and PAs and anybody and everybody in the bookish space so we can all just help each other. Because I think that is something that is lacking sometimes. So eventually, one day, that's what I want. That's what I expect from this podcast. I want us to also find new readers. I mean, I want to scream about your books to the void with you after you've been on an episode with me. I want to be able to, uplift you. Honestly, that's all that this really is. I know I keep saying it and I keep going on about it, but that's what I want, if you can't tell, that's something that I'm really passionate about, just as much as I'm passionate about writing. I'm passionate about helping others and uplifting people and just being there for people when somebody else might not be. And I have 150 different authors who want to talk, and we come from all different walks of life. And I'm so excited to talk to all of you. This episode is obviously not very long. It's just kind of an introduction to who I am, why I started the podcast, kind of what I expect from it. You can join us on Patreon, still at the So You're an Author pod. You can find us, like I've said before, on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok at So You're an Author pod. You can find me personally at Adair Reese on Instagram, Threads, Patreon, and on TikTok, I am Adair Reese Author. And I really just want to thank you for listening to me kind of talk about all of this. I hope it was okay. Again, I didn't really know what to expect doing this first episode by myself, or anything like that. Oh, one other thing, as the Southern in me comes out, where I'm like, oh yeah, before you go, did you hear, One other thing is that there may be solo episodes in between our interviews, which I'm hoping to release every Friday from now on. Unless something comes up and for some reason I can't release on a Friday, it'll be either Thursday or Saturday or something like that, at least one interview a week. In between those, you may get episodes that are just kind of like this, just very short 25 to 30 minute episodes of me just talking about either something going on in the bookish space or the author space or anything like that. This will never be a snark podcast. This will never be a nothing but drama laden podcast. There may be times where I do episodes about drama that is going on in the author community because I feel like it is necessary for people to know about it, or to at least be aware of it. But that is not the purpose of this podcast. Again, we are here to uplift, not belittle. I need to make that into merch eventually or something of that nature. We'll talk about that later. But there will be kind of just mini-sodes in between the interviews every now and again. Just of, like I said, if there's something that kind of interests me that I want to talk about and I kind of want you guys to know about it, then you will probably get a little mini-sode every now and again. So please make sure that you are following along. Episodes released to Patreon first and then to everywhere else via Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube. I'm trying to get it on the other ones. I'll be able to do that as soon as I publish this episode. So that is something that if you can find us, please subscribe to us everywhere that is humanly possible. Click your little notifications. That way you know exactly when we've posted. Follow me on Threads. I'm most active on there. Again, that is Adair Reese. I will be posting on there whenever I am releasing anything or anything of that nature. This episode will be released first to my $10 and up patrons. And then on the following day is when it is released to everybody else. So if you are interested in getting this first before anybody else, you will have to subscribe at $10 a month to my Patreon. It's $10 or higher. It's $10, $15, or $20. $5 is just to support the channel, and then $10 and above have their own perks. Other than that, you can join for free. I still post a crap ton of free content over there. Not all of it is paid. Some of it is, some of it isn't. You know, that's just kind of how the game is played. But yeah, everywhere else is obviously free to follow me. I don't have any other paywalls up or anything like that. And I really hope that you guys enjoyed this first episode. I hope that you are going to enjoy the show. And I absolutely cannot wait to meet all of you and to interview more indie authors and to really build something here. Also, if you're ever interested in volunteering, you can get in touch with me on my socials, as I've stated 8 million times in this podcast already. They will also be in the descriptions for you to find and everything else. I may eventually take volunteers. Right now it is just me, and my fiance does help me with some of the audio editing because I'm still new to learning that. This episode was done entirely by me though, so hopefully it's not too bad. But I just want to say again, thank you for listening to me rant about myself and about what I want all this to be and everything else. And I will see you next week with our first author. Thank you again for listening to the So You're an Author podcast. In the description, you will be able to find not only our socials, but also the socials for the author that we have interviewed in this episode. And as always, dear listener, without you, there would be no podcast. So if you could please like, share, subscribe, comment, or help other listeners find the podcast in any way, shape, or form, we really appreciate it. Thank you again for taking the time to listen, and we will see you next week.